We're here in the Alberta Legislature building in Edmonton, and I'm sitting down for a year-end interview with Premier Danielle Smith. Thanks so much for joining us again.
My pleasure.
So this is a bit of an annual tradition that leaders like to do, and we like leaders to do, to talk about what's happened in the previous year, what you're looking for in the future. And I'd like to do something a little bit different this year, which is just kind of narrow in on one subject that was of a lot of public interest, and that's education.
Yeah.
After the 3-week strike and lockout, your government brought in the Back to School Act, right? Bill 2, passed in one day, which imposed this contract on teachers that 90% of them had already voted down. They already said, no, we don't want that. They've lost the right to collectively bargain. They return to classrooms where they say the conditions are unchanged for now. We hear from a lot of educators who say, why does the government not like us? Why don't they respect us? And so I guess I wonder, what do you think of when you think of teachers? Like, what is your perception of teachers?
Well, I'll tell you, I mean, my starting point is that because I was a school trustee, that I believe in local government and local decision making. And so when we first came in, we were hearing from our school trustees about where some pressure points were. And when we got a first negotiated settlement, or a proposal earlier in the year, the breakdown was 60-40. So we were actually a lot closer than in that first vote. And then we added an additional $300 million to the proposal, and then we got further apart. And so we were kind of wondering what was going on there. And I think part of it was perhaps that there was more work that needed to be done on complexity, on aggression, so that's why we started our task force. And when we got the task force results back, we realized that there were certain decisions that you just couldn't make at the bargaining table. It's going to require us to do what we're doing now through the Cabinet Committee, a cross-ministry approach to address issues of mental health, addiction, aggression and behavioral issues, dealing with the issues, some very serious disabilities, dealing with some very serious medical issues. English is a second language. Kids' rights were being impacted. Teachers who didn't want to be back out on strike, their rights were being impacted. So we settled the strike, and now we're dealing with the issues that we hear from teachers that are of most importance to them. And I hope that they'll see that as we start working through these issues of class size and complexity, that we're serious about solving them.
The Back to Work legislation, though, I think many people were surprised that there was a contract imposed by the bill, and that wasn't necessarily necessary to get teachers back in the classroom. So why did you go that route?
You know, I'll tell you why. It's because we were very forthright about the amount of dollars that we had in our budget to put forward a package, and it was $2.6 billion. And we'd come to 2 negotiated agreements that were put to members. And then at the last minute, the Teachers Association put something on the table that would have cost an additional $2 billion. And we just can't do that. And if we wanted to get certainty to get the kids back in school, we didn't want to have 61 different strikes happening at the local level.
Right, but it's an arbitrator's job to bring folks, the sides, the parties closer together, not to let them wander further apart, right? So was there some concern about a risk that an arbitrator would have awarded or imposed a deal that you weren't willing to pay for?
Well, we are very committed to making sure that we don't have defined pupil-teacher ratios in collective agreements. And our school boards have said, don't bind our hands, because some schools want to have more teachers and others want to have more education assistants. That's the kind of flexibility that we need to have. We have more than one employee group that we have to manage, and we have more than one circumstance. It was a fundamental difference of opinion on what management rights are, and I don't know that a binding arbitration would have taken that policy consideration into account.
You've often referred to this solution in Saskatchewan that they adopted as a result of their labor disruption, these complex needs classrooms, which, as I understand it, involve students not spending the entire day in there, but kind of coming in and out as needed. How do you envision something like that being deployed in Alberta?
As a for instance, one of the things that we're discovering is that English as a second language has just ballooned, especially in some of the larger boards. And so taking an approach where you have kids in an ESL classroom until such time that they develop enough language skills to be integrated is probably a pretty smart thing to do. And that's one of the unique kinds of solutions that we're going to have to look for. We have also heard of instances that they call it class clearing, where you have a child who's throwing chairs and acting out, and so they clear the entire classroom out. Well, maybe what you need to do is you need to take that child out and have some one-on-one time with that child so that the classroom environment stays undisrupted for the other kids.
So if you want to take a student who's causing a disruption out of a class, you need an adult, right?
Yeah, correct.
Someone trained to do that.
Correct.
And one of the things that this contract dispute has highlighted is Alberta's level of per student funding, particularly compared to other provinces. How do you justify having this lower level of funding per student?
We also have a lot more students who are in different types of learning models. So charter schools, independent schools, homeschooling, that has also increased. And those parents are willing to take on a portion of the funding, and so it actually reduces cost of education for government. So some of the numbers you can't quite compare apples to apples. What we want to look at is where are the differences. So when we look at the teacher's salary grid in particular, teachers will now, when the contract is fully implemented, start at $70,000 per year. They will go up to $119,000 per year. They have 916 hours of instructional time that they can do, which calculates out to about 180 days per year. And that's pretty comparable to what you see in Ontario West.
Right. I think a counter argument for that, though, from what we hear from teachers, though, is that Alberta teachers are asked to do more, right? So if you're looking at the amount of time that they're spending marking, 38 papers per class as opposed to 30 papers per class, or the amount of things that they have to do because there's government policy requiring them to go through these bureaucratic tasks, that they're working harder for that money.
Well, we could make it easier for teachers. There's no doubt about that. And maybe one of the things we have to look at, like they're doing in Ontario, is having each child graduate with trades education. Maybe we need to integrate better with community colleges, with the registered apprenticeship program, so that it does take a bit of a load off the academic instruction, so that we can focus our academic instruction on the core courses. Maybe there's a need for us to look at different ways of delivering education. I'm very interested to see that there is some AI-assisted learning that helps individualize programs for each child. This is one of the new innovations that we've seen in other jurisdictions. Maybe that's a way that we can help our English language learners. Maybe we can have the language set to their original language, and that might help them as they're learning how to communicate in English. And we want to make sure that the job is manageable for teachers, that they wake up every day wanting to go to school and see the kids, and they're not feeling overwhelmed or frustrated or stressed. That's the goal of everybody.
So a quick one to finish up. Yeah. There was some polling through, during the strike, after the strike, and even looking at the way people vote, the public, the majority of the public said that they felt that the teachers were handling the conflict better than your government. And I'm wondering, well, how much it surprised you that people were, not everybody, some people, including some UCP voters, were on teacher's side.
I think people just wanted their kids back in class. There are some people who will say, give whatever it takes, but just don't have a strike. And I guess the proof will be in how we now address each of the issues that emerged over the last number of years, especially around complexity. And I'm just glad that the ATA has agreed to be at the table with us to help solve that problem, because I think it's going to require all of the insights of those on the front lines to be able to do it.
Yeah, well, we'll be watching what that cabinet committee is going to do next.
Great,
Thanks so much for taking the time to chat with us. I appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure.